What's up, everybody? This is Colin from Holistic Heritage Homestead. And today I'm going to be talking to you about how you can save money, you can minimize waste, and you can get all of the inputs for your compost systems at the same time. Now, I'm a firm believer in systems, and there's a lot of great information out there on how to compost and minimize waste and use your food scraps and things like that. But I don't think they get into the nitty-gritty or the different tips and tricks that really make the difference. And without getting organized, folks, and having systems, I think that, it tends to be messy and you tend to rely on like plastic bags and random containers. And whenever possible, you want to limit your plastic use. It's not really good for humans because of the toxins and the poisons, which is another video I'm going to cover. But whenever possible, go with glass, go with good quality food grade stainless steel, and ceramic. That makes a big difference because, what you wouldn't put into your body or what you wouldn't eat, you wouldn't really want to feed that to your animals because that ends up in your body in one way or another, right? So my awesome wife made things simple. Keep it simple. Compost, shells, chickens, pigs, bedding, right? And depending upon your needs and what animals you may have on your farm, what livestock, you may have more containers, you may have less containers or different containers. But the main thing is everything has a place. We throw out almost nothing. And we're proud of that because there's no reason to, right? If you have a small child at home, food falls on the floor all the time. And we may not want to eat that food that was on the floor, but I promise you, the chickens, the pigs, the livestock, they don't care. So there's always going to be waste, and having a restaurant management background, I'm telling you, even if you cook, and we cook every day in our house, we cook pretty much every meal, and we save money by doing that naturally, and we know what's going into our bodies, and quite frankly, we've only found 1 or 2 restaurants in the area that kind of are at the level we would like as far as quality of food, and that's not to disparage or say anything about the restaurants. It's just that we know how to cook, and we know how to cook well. And we're going to go over lots of fun recipes with you, but there will always be a waste yield. There are always going to be the ends of the cucumbers or the carrots, and there's always going to be things that normally you'd throw in the garbage, right? But everything has a place, and all organic things can be composted. I mean, just to touch and go on the subject, there's a lot of great information out there. There's a gentleman called David the Good who has a great YouTube channel who discussed how you can pretty much compost everything. And again, my giant disclaimer for everything is follow accepted guidelines and everything else. But at the end of the day, if an animal dies, which they do, on the ground, nature does its thing. Nature will decompose anything as long as it's not a toxin, as long as it's natural, right? So you may not want to put food scraps that have animal products or dairy or fats or oils or meat in your compost pile, mostly for the main reason that it attracts certain pests that are unwanted. However, your compost pile will break down anything. If it has the right bacteria and protozoa, and it will break down anything, just like the earth does, right? So what we like to do is, I like to put in the compost one here, I like to put any of the waste that I would not feed the animals. So the animals are always going to get first dibs, if you will, because they're going to turn it into compost anyway via, manure, right? So feed your animals first. Now, how do you decide what animals to feed first? Well, go with what's more important, what's more valuable. Our pigs are more important and more valuable. Our kuni pigs that we have top-notch, DNA tested breeding pair heritage pigs. And by the way, in a few months, we have some people that have already, called dibs on that. But if you're interested in getting some kuni pigs and you live in the Ozark region, let us know. We would be happy to supply that for you in a few months. We're going to have some litters coming. So, our pigs are more important than our chickens in that regard. They're also more picky about their diet, depending on the type of pig. We can't really feed them the types of scraps we would feed a chicken. So know what your animals eat. For example, I don't feed personally pork to the pigs or chicken to the chickens. Now, in a survival scenario, I'm just telling you all bets are off. You do what you got to do. because I promise they won't know the difference, nor would they care. And in nature, they are cannibalistic, believe it or not, despite what you have been told. So that being said, we don't like to feed chicken to chickens and pork to pork, but that's exactly why we separate these two, because if we have some chicken scraps, that will absolutely go to the pigs. If we have some pork scraps, naturally that goes to the chickens, right? You want to feed your animals first. Anything that they're not going to really want or eat, for example, like citrus, we don't really feed citrus to them. There's some things that won't go in any of these things, like chocolate, for example. It contains theobromine, which those animals, especially chickens, cannot process. It's poisonous to them. There's certain things that's recommended, like avocado pits and different things. Do your research on what you could feed your animals and act and plan accordingly. But for the most part, I have learned and been told by the elders that animals know what they can and cannot eat. And if they're not supposed to eat something, they stay away from it. For the most part, right? But we do the deciding for them, right? So we make it easy, we make it friendly, and we keep it simple. So the animals get fed first, right? And then there's some very specific stuff, like, for example, the shells, right? All of our eggshells go in here. For any of you that have chickens, you know that you take those eggshells, okay? Save them up. You cook them for like 7 to 12 minutes on, say 300 degrees or so, as long as you're burning off whatever proteins are there and any possible bacteria that could be there. And you roast those eggshells, and then you put them in a food processor and you grind them down to create more surface area and make them edible. You feed those back to your chickens because you are what you eat, and they need to produce eggshells, so give them eggshells. That's your grit for the animals. They have a crop and a gizzard. They're different than us. They have to grind things up, so that provides good grit for them, and it also provides naturally that calcium. It's also great in your gardens, especially in a smaller surface area. If you grind it up like that, it's phenomenal for your gardens. And if you really want to supercharge things, a little pro tip for you, add some vinegar to your eggshells. Let it kind of steep, if you will, or sit in that for a while. Strain it off, and you have awesome bioavailable calcium for your plants. And if you know anything about tomatoes, blossom end rot is really painful for gardeners, and it's something that we almost have all experienced at one point or another for your tomatoes, for example, and that's something that will cure that very quickly. So that is for the garden, right? And it's also for the animals, right? Compost. Now, compost, I'm going to put things in here that I would put directly into my regular compost pile, right? I also like to, what I'm going to cover a video on, I like to trench compost that, which means in the chicken run, I have an area where the chickens can roam safely. I will quite literally, under a compost pile, dig into the ground and bury stuff. Now in that, I'll throw bones, I will throw everything, fish meal, look up your fertilizers, folks, look up your compost starters. It's all made of that stuff. And if you want your calcium and your phosphorus and those coveted minerals in your compost, which is your fertilizer, well, how do you think nature gets that? From bones, right? I am of partial Italian descent. I'm a proud Italian-Irish American and a couple of other things. And my wife is a Filipino American. And we eat a lot of fish in our household, especially, sardines and anchovies. And remember, the ancients and the elders, they've always, the whole trick about burying fish heads under your tomato plants, or Native Americans burying fish heads under corn and things like that. That stuff works. I've done it. It's phenomenal for your soil. So don't be afraid to use animal waste the right way, as long as you're keeping it safe from animals and pests, right? That's why I prefer, if I am going to put any bones or any animal products in my compost, which I do to a limited amount, I make sure I'm trench composting that. I'm actually burying that. But all of the plant matter, the regular organic matter, that goes into my compost pile itself. And or the chicken run, which is the feeder, that's the main. I clean out the chicken coop because we do the deep litter method, right? Clean out the chicken coop. That goes into the run. And that run, after a while, once that's broken down, that feeds my compost bins. And then I give it 90 days to age. So each one of these topics are their own video. I'm just throwing a lot of information at you. I just want to provoke and elicit some thought here, right? And another really cool thing that, I don't know, I thought I came up with this myself, but I'm sure someone else has probably been doing this for a long time. But Bedding. You see, sometimes you'll have things like this. We cook with a lot of garlic. Again, partial Italian, Filipino, a lot of garlic. And we use a lot of onions, and again, we use a lot of herbs. So any of that, those leftovers from the herbs, those little sticks or the little, remnants of the, the thyme or the rosemary, all of that stuff is great for animal bedding because number one, it smells great. If you walk into our chicken coop, it has zero smell. And that's because we put lots of carbon down. So we only buy pine shavings. The only bedding we buy is pine shavings. And we do that only for the nesting boxes themselves. And that's because we take pride in the fact that our eggs are super, super clean and they don't have, the ooey stuff on them that other eggs have, because we not only put them in our nesting boxes because it's easier to see if an animal is, doing their business in the nesting box because it's easier to see, it's lighter in color. We also give them a little doormat. So in front of the nesting boxes, we throw a little bit of extra pine shavings down because it helps clean their feet, before they get into the nesting boxes. And that sounds like an extra step, but for $7 of pine shavings, that will last us at least a year and a half, maybe. Could probably stretch it to 2 years if I really wanted to. And it makes the cleaning of our eggs so much easier, and it makes them just really great and makes life a lot easier. So that also provides some good bedding for the animals and just turns into compost itself. But, when you're cutting onions, that little husk, that little outer dry shell, that is amazing bedding. It's just great for holding manure. Same thing for garlic, same thing for all those leftovers from your herbs. And again, it smells great. And when you walk into a chicken coop and you smell rosemary and thyme, and, we have wild mint that grows outside the coop, and you throw some of that in there, which the animals love to eat. There's nothing better than that, right? A nice smelling, super clean coop and free bedding. Obviously, we add the leaves, which are awesome, and the grass naturally into the bedding. But between that and our kitchen waste, we save an incredible amount of money. We buy very little feed for our animals, quite frankly, because we're always cooking. And everything that you pull from your garden, when you're thinning your plants, goes to the animals. The weird stuff that maybe has a hole in it or looks like the leaf cutter, some animal got to it, goes to the animals, right? Your dead plants, your leftover plants at the end of the harvest season, goes to the bedding and the animal. So nothing gets wasted, folks. Nothing should ever get wasted. Everything has a purpose. Everything has value. And with this system, the bedding goes into the coop, gets cleaned out into the chicken yard, goes into the compost bin number 1, and then goes to the secondary bin, which is 90 days or more, so that it's clean and good. And you don't have to work hard because you have it all in one shot. We like to, be very hands-on with our animals, so we go out to them at least 2 times a day, and we quite simply just take our stainless steel, and our ceramic things here, and we just bring it out to them and handle our business. That's it, right? And there's nothing better than reusing and saving money and getting it, for free. So be more deliberate about your stuff, and this also helps prevent, feeding the wrong things to your animals, because you tend to be more focused and a little slower and a little more deliberate about your movements. And get a good system. Find something that works for you. Get something clean. Get healthy, cleanable containers. These have carbon, filters on top, so there's zero smell in our kitchen, and it's one of the best things we've ever done, folks. So again, do what works for you. Contour this to your needs, to your livestock, to your composting systems. But a lot of the things we touched on in here, I'm going to get into, individual videos, and I'm really going to elaborate and really dig deep into it, because this is a launching point for everything. And again, we're talking about cooking in a lot of our videos soon, and the kitchen is really the starting place for a lot of things, and it's also the finishing place for a lot of things. And get your kitchen in order and just get organized, folks. I hope this was of value to you, and I hope this helps, get your wheels turning as far as how you can be better in your systems. And as always, please like, please subscribe, please share. And, we appreciate all the love, and just, throw some comments below about some things that have worked for you and that you like to save, or things that you find that you can recycle or upcycle yourselves. And I'd love to hear from you. As always, take care. Thank you so much.